After it impacting our lives so drastically forever, how much do we really know about the coronavirus? Let's take a step back for a minute and try to answer some questions.
A virus, in its most basic form, is a body of genetic code surrounded by a layer of fats and proteins. Its main objective is to make copies of itself, in other words, reproduce. These copies or mutations are not always perfect. Lots of mutations just lead to the virus dying, but occasionally a mutation will happen which will give the virus a new ability to be more deadly or to jump from one species to another. For the mutations to continue occurring, the virus needs a host. But a host is useful only for so long because every host eventually dies.
But when you have the ability to transfer with a sea of hosts constantly traveling in close proximity and being in contact with each other, it's a bonanza. More hosts equal more chances of mutations equal more danger.
Our bodies contain all sorts of microscopic organisms like bacteria and viruses. Some of these are pathogens that can cause diseases. Animals have them too. When a pathogen jumps from one host to another, which isn't familiar with it, it can take advantage of its lack of defenses and form mutations that cause disease.
In case of the coronavirus, the symptoms of illness vary from cough, fever, shortness of breath to even pneumonia. But the severity of these symptoms vary based on factors like a person's health, age, their immunity, or whether they have any other underlying diseases like diabetes, heart problems, etc. In fact, some of the people who get the virus don't show any symptoms at all.
After getting infected, it can take an average of 5 to 6 days before you feel sick and the symptoms start to appear. But you can already have started to spread it even if you feel healthy. That's how the virus was so successful at spreading around the world. This dot represents one person who is healthy and decides to go out as usual. They get into a bus or metro and head into their office where they catch COVID, but they don't feel sick right away. Later, they go to a sports game where they unknowingly transfer it to other people. Most of them might have mild symptoms, but one might be an elderly person with severe symptoms who will eventually need to go to the hospital. But these three, who are infected but don't feel sick, go out again as usual, infecting several more people.
So, how do you stop the spread of the coronavirus? By acting like you already have it. You all must have heard this already, but let's go through this one more time. Why wash hands? It's because soap, literally any kind of soap, absolutely annihilates viruses like the coronavirus.
The coronavirus is surrounded by a layer of fat and proteins which easily stick to places like your hands. When you rinse your hands with only water, it just washes over the virus without any effect. It is because the fat makes the virus behave kinda like oil. What happens when you pour oil over water? It just floats. It doesn't mix. But add a little soap and suddenly the oil dissolves. That is because soap has two-sided molecules. One side attracts to water and one side to fat. So when the soap interacts with virus, bam! The fat gets pulled away by the soap molecules and the leftover harmless bits of the virus gets rinsed down to drain. But this process takes time, 20 seconds to be specific. That is why it is recommended you wash your hands for at least 20 seconds. Sanitizers have the same effect on the virus, but it is recommended you use sanitizers with more than 60% alcohol.
But in my opinion, it's better using soap for 20 seconds over sanitizers because you still have shards of the virus on your hands. And if your hands are sweaty or dirty, it can actually dilute the sanitizer and reduce its effectiveness. Next, why wear masks?
Whenever we breathe or talk, or especially when we cough or sneeze, we let out little droplets of water. These droplets of water are what's carrying the virus. So, when you wear a mask, the degree to which the droplets and germs spread is drastically minimized.
Let's understand it this way. We cover our nose so that we don't breathe in any of these droplets and protect ourselves. And we cover our mouths so that we don't spread any of these droplets and protect others. A person gets infected when the virus enters their lungs or bloodstream.
On 23rd January, a family traveled from Wuhan to Guangzhou. The next day, they ate lunch at a restaurant. One of them had the coronavirus, but he didn't feel sick yet. Within a few days, other members started showing symptoms. Then, the family on the other table started showing symptoms too. The first person was the source of all these infections, although some of them were sitting almost 14 feet away. But the people sitting on these tables didn't get sick. Why? An AC unit here kept the air flowing in this section of the restaurant. It circulated the virus from the person to the others in this section.
The difference between how the air moves inside versus outside is huge. When you're outside, there are a lot of elements that affect the virus itself, like sunlight, humidity, wind, etc. But how much it affects you depends on three factors: the amount of ventilation around you, how much you protect yourself, and the distance. That is why having any form of public gatherings like schools, theaters, weddings, etc. outside and especially inside is such a bad idea. Hence, to keep yourself safe, you need to be careful, wear masks, wash your hands, and keep distance. On 22nd March, following the Janata curfew, a complete lockdown was announced. The idea was that everybody is put into quarantine, going out only for essential work, following all protocols like social distancing. Everyone infected would have enough time to show symptoms and recover without infecting anyone else, thus flattening the curve of the spread. Due to lack of information and knowledge, a lot of people did not understand these basic notions. The lockdown was a failure, not only in India, but a lot of other countries. The number of confirmed cases continue to rise with absolutely no sign of stopping. All businesses have started to open with minimal precautions, and people have almost forgotten that we have a pandemic on our hands. It is now completely up to you to educate yourselves and keep yourselves safe as it gets harder and harder to maintain social distancing and resist from the resuming of the world. But there is a silver lining, which hopefully lies in our near future. So, what is the future and when is the virus going to go away? As a scientist and all the brilliant people relentlessly work on creating a liable vaccine or antidote, we need to understand something. At the end of the day, the virus is a living organism, and we, the host, are its habitat. It does not want to kill us. It just happens to live so aggressively that it ends up destroying its habitat. Similar to how we humans are destroying our habitat, the Earth. Over a period of time, the virus will mutate into something much milder, which can maybe even assist us in our life processes or be treated as a regular viral fever. But then again, this will take time and we need to be careful. Now, you already might be aware of everything we spoke about so far, but I'm sure you know somebody who isn't. These certainly are difficult times, and we need to endeavour them by keeping ourselves and our loved ones safe.